Hi, I'm Ed Turnage with Home Emporium. We build custom headboards, and more than likely you've purchased one and you're ready to get it hung, and I'm going to show you today how to do that. You have instructions with your headboard. It's very simple, but it's good to have video to kind of put a picture to what you're doing. The headboard I'm going to put up is 48 inches high. It's a deluxe series, and I already know that I want to hang it just below the top of my bedding. So before I moved my bedding, I measured and I determined that I have about 24 inches of bedding with my mattress, my frame, and the bedding on top of it. So keep that in mind. You don't want to hang your headboard so high that the bottom of the headboard will be exposed above the top of the bedding. Now I know that I want my headboard just below the top of the bedding, and I know that it's a 48-inch headboard. So there are two ways to do this. I can calculate it, as I'm going to, or I can take a 70-pound king-size headboard and hold it against the wall while I measure and mark. That's not going to happen. If you have help, that's probably a way you can go. I'm going to do this by myself and show you how easy. So I'm going to take a piece of tape. I've got a few pieces of masking tape, about 1.5 inches long, and I'm going to approximate that with my 24 inches of bedding and my 48 inches of headboard, and then subtracting about 4 inches of how I want it to come down from the bedding. I'm going to wind up with about 68 inches from the floor. Okay, so I'll go over that again. 24 inches of bedding, 48 inches of headboard, and I want to subtract the amount that I want the bottom of the headboard to come below the top of the bedding. So I'm approximating it about 68 inches is where the top of my headboard will be. So I've made a mark there with some tape. Now I want to come down from my mark and place a mark where my first screw will go. In order to do that, I've taken the measurement that you have on the back of your headboard. Each one is different. You have a measurement. So you'll measure that down from your mark to where that measurement ends. Put yourself a mark there. I happen to know that mine is about 20 inches. So I'm going to put my mark right there. So now I have 20 inches between the top of the headboard and where I know my screws will be anchored into the wall. Now I need to know where my studs are. Be sure you know where your studs are, because if you put this against the wall without going into the studs, it won't hold. There's a couple of ways to find out. One way is to have a stud finder and move it across the wall until it shows you. Another way, if you don't have a stud finder, there's a couple of little tricks. You'll notice that we have two boxes. We have a telephone wire box, we have an electrical box. The boxes have to be anchored to something behind the sheetrock. They're anchored to studs. You don't know if the stud is on this side of the box or if it's on that side. But a nice little tap tells me that the stud is right here on this side of the box. As I move away from there, I can tell it's hollow. If I move away here, it's hollow. So that at least gives me some idea. There's a couple more ways. On this particular wall, my lighting is directly above, and lighting coming directly above shows up imperfections on the wall. Add to that the fact that this wall is painted with flat paint, and I have my imperfections showing very clearly. I can actually see a nail head right here. That means that's where the stud is. So I've got it lined up between here and that nail head. There's my stud. If I want to check myself, and I have a stud finder right there. So now that we know where our first stud is, the one that's closest to the center of the headboard, we're going to mark it. I've placed a little arrow right there to the edge of this tape, so that shows that my first screw will go right here. Now I want to move over to the headboard and look at that. This is the back of the headboard we're going to hang. This is a king size. The wall mount is simply one board that has been ripped lengthwise at a 45-degree angle. The top portion of the board will never be removed. Always leave the top portion anchored to the headboard as it comes to you. The bottom portion, in this particular one, a king size, has 5 gray screws, and these are the ones that we'll want to take out. When you remove the bottom portion, that is the portion that will be anchored to the wall. Take the screws out of it, run them in from the opposite side. This is my center screw, and I know it's going to go right there. I don't want to take it all the way down. I want to leave it out just a little bit until I get all my screws in place, and then I'll anchor them securely. I'm going to use a level. There we are. Now I can run the rest of my screws in. Once they're all in place, I'm going to tighten them. I think I hit a nail or something on this one. It's definitely in there. Now I'm going to hang my headboard. Voila. Once it's hung, it can be slid left or right to get it precisely where you want it to be. I want mine just to the side of that electrical outlet, so I think I've got mine exactly where I want it. And we'll come back with another video once the bed is back in place, and we'll get a final look at it.